Can I go home now?
We need you to keep us on our toes, Charlie.
That's what Jim Quirk keeps telling me. God bless him, I tell you.
Recording in progress.
There you go.
Good evening. Welcome to the November 4th Yarmouth Board of Health meeting, which I am now calling open. This is a virtual meeting, as has been usual since the pandemic, and the public can access this by website instructions and Zoom. I would like to start this meeting because we are on the eve of a very, very important election with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it
which
stands,
stands
one nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Going to start with attendance. Charlie?
Here.
Larry?
Here?
Eric?
Present.
And I'm Mary Craig. I'm the vice chair, and I'm sitting in for Hillard Bosky this evening. The first item on the agenda is public comment. The open meeting law discourages public bodies from discussing topics not listed on the agenda, so the public may come forth with comments, but we are not responding to them at this time. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to make a public comment? Anyone outside dialing in? No? Doesn't look it. Thank you. The second agenda item is the current hours of operation for the Yarmouth disposal and recycling area. And it looks like this is kind of a housekeeping issue.
It is. Assistant Deputy Director Roby Whitehouse is here.
Yes.
Good evening. Yes, thank you very much, Jay. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director for the town of Yarmouth, and you're absolutely right. This is a housekeeping matter. Several years ago, in approximately the timeframe of 2004, then Superintendent Rob Angel came before the Board of Selectmen, and he's not sure if he met with the Board of Health, and requested that the hours of operation be changed from 7:30 to 3:30, 7 days a week. There were no questions asked at that time, and he assures me that there was documentation. However, in that time frame, there's been a couple of changes in managers, and we just needed to have that documentation to approve those time change. So those are the current hours, 7:30 to 3:30, 7 days a week. As far as I know, there's not been any issues. My request this evening is that you authorize your Director of Health to sign a document stating that you agree to those hours, and that will be distributed to the Department of Environmental Protection, along with the authorization to operate permit request.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments from staff? How about the board? Any questions or comments for Roby? I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the proposed schedule as written.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Larry. All right, then we have a motion on the table. Did you get that, Mo, okay? All right. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay, it has carried. You're all set.
Do you also authorize Jay to sign a document? Does that all come together?
Yes, yes. Is that all right that we amend it?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
okay,
should have included that.
okay. Thank
Terrific.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
It gets it wrong. Yeah, thanks.
Next on the agenda is Stop and Shop, status of the tobacco permit. What's happening with that now?
Madam Chairman, thank you. The Stop and Shop made a corporate decision some months ago, and I think I made you aware that they were no longer selling tobacco products. Long Pond, because there's a pharmacy, they weren't selling, but this would apply to the Station Ave location. As these permits are calendar, as you know, December 31st, they will expire. I do anticipate that they will not be renewing their license, and as you have a cap, this will now go from the existing 28 permits down to 27. I did want to make the board also aware that applications have already gone out. Phil has already put the applications out, and in typical Phil fashion, he's on top of it, and 6 have already come back. So the tobacco applications have been distributed, and they're starting to come back. But I'll give you a confirmation later, well, actually December, at the end of December, beginning of January, to confirm, in fact, that the ceiling, the cap that you've put in has now been reduced down to 27 permits. We fully anticipate that. I just want to make the board aware that there will be a downward adjustment in tobacco permits for the town.
Great.
Okay?
Okay.
Jay, so Stop and Shop has 2 stores in Yarmouth, so is that one permit for both stores?
So, Larry, the Long Pond location, because it has a pharmacy, they're not allowed to sell
I see.
tobacco
Okay.
products. This would only apply, they only have a permit at their Station Ave location, so it only goes down by 1.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Fourth item agenda is seasonal influenza / COVID clinic update, and I'm guessing that's Barry.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. As last Tuesday, we held our annual town flu and COVID shot clinic. We had 26 shots, COVID shots given out, 38 high-dose flu shots, and 7 regular flu shots. It was a very nice, very smooth process. I'm pretty sure we're going to continue it. The coming up years, we did get with the senior center and found out why there was a low turnout, and it's the demographics that we're targeting. QR codes and stuff like that are kind of hard for them to use. So we'll probably still have the QR codes, but we're gonna have a different registration outlet to make it even easier and seamless. So the senior center is more than happy to help us put that together for them, to help take over the registration, which is very nice.
Great.
And speaking of COVID, we just within 2 hours received 12 cases of free COVID kits. So we will have those at all the polling centers tomorrow. We'll go them to the churches. We have a couple cases upstairs. We have a couple cases here in our office too to give out. So, and these kits, instead of having just 2 tests per kit, there are 5 kits or 5 tests per kit. So families only need to take 1 or so.
Okay, great. That's good
Barry,
news.
how are the expiration dates on them? Did you notice?
I honestly, since we just got them,
Okay.
we just got them in. So I think the last ones we were good through, like the expiration date was like late March. So these should be around the same. So
And the ones that I received in the mail, you hit the QR code and it gave a very long list of test kits, and it showed the revised expiration date, and mine were like April 25.
Yeah.
So I think there's none out there that are not valid,
Well, that's good
as
to
long as they're
know.
on that list or coming from like the
So
health
that's on the
department,
QR code
on the box.
good to know.
Yeah. Number 5, Stuff a Cruiser, Charlie's favorite.
yes.
Barry, you going to tell us about that?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. The Yarmouth Food Pantry and the Yarmouth Police Department are sponsoring their annual Stuff a Cruiser, November 9th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I wasn't for sure. I thought it was going to be just at the pantry, but great news. It's going to be they're going to be at both Stop Shop locations, Shaw's and Peterson's. So there's going to be 4 different locations the public can donate goods to. They're looking for simple stuff, peanut butter and jelly, any canned food items, whether that's SpaghettiOs or canned vegetables, canned meats, anything like that. Any food items, juice boxes, pastas, cereals, oatmeals. And one thing important is feminine products. They take those feminine products. They accept those too for people that don't have access to those. And as always, money is always accepted to help them purchase stuff that they don't have. So it's a great cause. I think last year they got over 5,000 items just in that short period of time. So swing by, donate. People, it's a great thing to help the local community. The food pantry is all run by volunteers, as we know. They've been in here. They do wonderful things for the community. So
Great. Thank you.
thank you.
Number 6, Green burial, discussion, policy/regulations. This is something we have been talking about for some time. I'm glad Mr. McCurdy isn't here this evening because I just don't think we've gotten very far on this.
Well, he said he couldn't make it.
He couldn't make
this meeting. At the last meeting, he said he wouldn't be able to
Okay,
make
good,
it.
good. Okay, so Jay, kind of fill us in where we are at on this, please.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chairman. This has gone on now for, I think, the third meeting now. An applicant has come forward, first time that I have seen this, and I think first time for the board to see this. So this is uncharted waters.
Breaking
So
new ground.
We really are. And as a result, we have to, whether we see this again or not, we have to have a policy in place. There needs to be an application, has to be thoughtful, comprehensive, and well vetted. And we've been in that, we're doing that process now, working with DEP, we're state DPH, town council. Another player in this part is our water superintendent. And from DPW, as they're responsible for the water supply, the integrity and of Yarmouth's water supply, they have weighed in on this. So we're really trying to gather information. And tonight in your package, what you have is a list of about 13 events, of 13 conditions that I think need consideration. That may not be an exhaustive list. You may have more. And I'm just going to, because it doesn't show up for the community to see, but if you don't mind, I'm just going to some of the considerations that the board is going to have to decide on. Barry and I will very much give you recommendations. With the chair being absent tonight, I do think this is a take-home, this is homework for the board to consider. But will green burials and home burials be allowed in Zone 2? Is it approval or sign-off from DPW required? Is a buffer zone required from the boundary zone or the wetlands? Is there a minimum property size required for home burials? What is the allowable location on the plot itself, front, side, back of the dwelling? Individual plot or family plot? Are property line setbacks required? Required distance from the dwelling, from a septic system, garage, shed, or pool? Define the area of non-disturbance. What is the size going to be? Who's responsible for the ongoing maintenance? What type of plot markers are allowed? Size, material? Is it a butter notification required? How? Certified? How's that going to be handled? Who is responsible for witnessing the burial? After I sent this on to the board, I said, what one I neglected on, and Barry and I have talked about this for some time, is the cause of death needs to be considered. What are the conditions of the individual, and what was the cause of death? That will need, I think the board will have to also be part of that. Now, I'm not dropping this on your desk by any means, but I think we'll help guide or recommend, although Barry and I don't sit on the board, we want to give you some guidance on this. We think these are the things that need to be considered to have a thoughtful and comprehensive policy put in place. Town council says they will also guide and help craft this policy. An application would then be put in place, and then move forward. I'm not, without any prejudice, do we know if Mr. Ross McGurty's application is going to be approved? But we're gathering information for the board to make an informed decision. These are some of the things that I think that need to be considered, and there may be more. But again, tonight, Madam Chair, it's your decision, but these are the things that we think that need to be considered. And we will certainly, if the board asks for recommendations, we will ask. We have contacted most of the communities on the Cape, if they allow, and many of them don't. But what are some of the regulations, local regulations? Chapter 111, Section 31 allows the board to make its own regulations, aside from state DPH, DPH and DEP. The local board can have a policy, like you do with body piercing, tobacco. You have local regulations. There is nothing in place right now. So we want to get that in, make sure that that's in place, whether we deal with 114 Mayflower or the next property, or never again, but there should be a policy in place. As the board has said, they want to have this studied, right?
Right. I'd like to have a policy and a checklist that would make it easy for anyone who is interested in applying for a green burial to be able to see exactly what we're going to require, what the policy is and what the requirements are, and help us to see that they've all been met. Eric just sent out to the board reply from DEP because he had been in contact with them, and this was a pretty comprehensive reply. It even mentioned that the town can legislate that there will be no green burials in the town. So you mentioned that there are some towns that don't allow it on the Cape?
Yeah, well, actually, our municipal town cemetery does not allow that,
No, towns. There are some towns that have not allowed green.
that have not allowed green burials.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just curious which ones have done
I'd have to go back into the list on some of them.
There are
but-
some.
But clearly, Harwich has several, that's from, because I go to, these are larger size. I haven't really seen small lots
Right. No, I'm talking about towns that
prohibiting them.
prohibit.
I can get you a list of that, yeah.
Yeah, just curious about that.
Yep.
Would you like to just talk a little bit about that answer that you got?
Sure, I mean, I opened this up on my way here, so I didn't have a chance to read it too thoroughly, but it was a little bit confusing because it sounded, the gist of it was that the DEP does not generally involve itself with the home burial process, which is a bit contradictory
From
to
what we heard last
we've
week,
heard.
last meeting, yeah.
So they seem to be forwarding a lot of the same information that we've already seen. And it sounds to me like they're really leaving it up to local boards
Right.
to make the
That was the
decision.
gist of what I seen. And exactly from whom was this?
This was from Aaron Raposo and Ian Jarvis at the Department of Environmental Protection. Aaron Raposo is an environmental engineer from the Water Pollution Control Division for the Cape and Islands.
Okay. Yeah. And,
So, and I apologize, that came through this afternoon, so I think I forwarded it at about 4 o'clock.
you did, yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe that's something we can review in a little more
That's just
depth.
another piece of information. And this handout here that's, Jay, that was on the
Right.
table,
That was sent by town council, and it's a guide.
and it's what we've already had,
It-
actually.
Exactly. Eric, I think your words, what you said is contradictory. It's actually in DEP regulations that they are part of the approval process. The local board, yourself, play a role, and the ultimate approval is done through the legislative authority or the Board of Selectmen. So there's a number of different steps, but make no mistake, I've had 2 conversations with DEP at the Lakeville office, and they said, we have nothing to consider right now, he needs to submit that to us. So I don't know if they're brought, I can't imagine they get too many of these, so these individuals maybe have not been involved. I don't know if it was the right office or not, but DEP would certainly want to play a role. I think you'd want to hear, I think the board would want to hear from DEP of what their decision is on this.
Well, from someone at DEP that can speak authoritatively, apparently.
My understanding was that this gentleman, well, first of all, he is from the Lakeville office, and my understanding was that he would be one of the people reviewing the application.
But he's saying that
But
they
he's saying they don't have any
They don't
role
get
in
any
it.
role?
That's
Yeah.
what the email says.
Yeah.
So there's some sort of review role. Maybe he's not saying it's a role approval or not.
Right. And
knows?
if the board remembers, there was, again, she was not a subject matter expert by any means, but an attorney out on Martha's Vineyard, who has handled 2 of these. I guess that gives her some experience, right, in this, and said that, in fact, DEP would be, she actually changed, I thought it was the board and then DEP, but she kind of reversed that, said it should go on to DEP. Once that threshold is crossed, it would come back to the board. So DEP, in my opinion, and if I may stand corrected, they clearly, I think the board would want to see their approval in their review.
So it's my understanding, I remember anyway, from last meeting, that Mr. McCurdy was instructed to go ahead and submit to DEP what he had already,
Exactly right. He has,
then get back to us with their response.
that's right, Madam Chairman, and I don't know what that time frame is, but he has the plot plan, he has the surveying work, he has the hydrogeological study with the soil evaluation. So that information, he actually, he went ahead and proactively, I believe, although I didn't see them, the abutters, he has notification from them, what role they play in your decision-making up to the board. But he is, and again, that may be part of the policy that you enact later on. But he has taken steps. I don't have any, I haven't any confirmation that he has done that. But I certainly, as he's submitted the paperwork, but I do know with certainty, I have no information back from DEP.
So Mr. McCurdy does not know about what we just heard about also from Lori with the Water Department, and that's that Zone 2 is causing a concern for them because that's what the property's in, although the burial site is not within Zone 2. Is that correct, Barry?
That's correct, but for instance, when we do any kind of septic information, like if somebody wants to add a bedroom, if it's any part of their property is in a Zone 2, the whole entire property is considered in a Zone 2. That's how we deal with septic. So how you want to deal with the green burial on this, you can say either all the property is, or if the burial site's not, that's up to the decision for the board. But that's generally how, when Jay and I make decisions on septic,
Okay.
it's all or none.
And is there some sort of regulatory background for that? I mean, do we have that ability to say this section of Zone 2 is excluded from this particular application for a burial?
We can, you can put it in your policy. It's through the water department also, that just for regulation of the amount of, I know it's different with bedrooms and with a body, but when it's been deemed a Zone 2, if one corner of your lot is in a Zone 2, the whole property is deemed.
Right.
Because with that buffer zone, there's,
And I know
addition-
that Mr. Grillo, right, said, is there any chance for, excluding that piece of the property from the Zone 2? Didn't he?
He did,
That
what he's
question.
saying is, in fact, and I think Eric has said this in an email to me, but the plot itself is not in Zone 2. It actually doesn't work that way. The address, like we do with the flood zone. I asked the building commissioner, how does the flood zone, the 100-year and 500-year, if a property is in the flood zone, it's considered.
the flood
It's 10%.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be 100%. In total or partial, it's in the flood zone. But you did hear from the water superintendent that their consultant has said, and I'm not going to read the whole email, I think you have it, but concerned about the guidance states that viruses and microorganisms can live for many years after a burial, so theoretically, microorganisms could be pulled into our wells. And she went on to say that I would be in favor of adding that restriction to the bylaw, the Aquifer Protection District bylaw that we have in town, that green burials would in fact, or home burials would not be allowed in Zone 2. Now, they don't have that right now, but she is stating that if that's the case.
And I know Hillard had requested some more information about that consultant in terms of the credentials and qualifications.
Yeah, bios from that, and I've passed that on. I received that today, and I've passed that on
Okay.
to Lori, the water superintendent, and to simply say, we need some background. If we're going to be dealing with science and data, we need to be able to back that up.
Okay.
And I haven't heard, that was just today that I
Okay.
sent that back.
Okay. So,
Could I ask a question on what APD is? It says, we would like to prohibit green burials in the APD.
Aquifer Protection District.
Okay. I see.
That is not and additionally, and DEP is supposed to be looking at and it's in your pack that you have received, it's the flood zone, the 100 and 500 year, and this is in that flood zone as well.
Right.
We just want to make sure we have guidelines in place that are consistent, and there's a standardization. Mary's talked about this for some time. We have to have a set policy. It's standard so that every applicant and knows what the rules are, right? We do this in so many other ways in public health. We have to make sure that, and these are guidelines to protect, in this case, it's protecting the environment and also our public water supply.
Yeah, I may be opening a can of worms here, but in my career as a veterinarian, I can't count the number of times we've actually euthanized horses and dropped them into the ground. We're totally unaware of any regulations to that effect.
Yeah.
So that, I don't know if that's just opening a can of worms or it's something that I've had to deal with as a veterinarian, and I think goes on on a regular basis all over the Cape.
Yeah,
Is that something we even want to get into, or is that
I know.
left?
I would caution the board putting animals on the same, this is a sacred process.
Well, but from a perspective of
The pathology, yeah,
water department, it's the same criteria.
Right.
Right.
In other words, we're talking about viruses and microorganisms that potentially could contaminate the, I'm not trying to advocate that be the
Yep.
case, but I think as a Board of Health, we're, rather than looking at the sacred aspect of it, we're looking at the health aspect of it.
Right.
And it would be the same, all of the same biology and physiology. These organisms, if I might add, they're all saprophytes. They're not typically pathogenic organisms unless they're, unless the human or animal is exposed in huge quantities. These are organisms that live ubiquitously in the environment. So my senses are not an issue, but
right.
it is something that goes on on a-
Without any concern.
without any regulation that I'm aware of,
I was
because
just-
I think I would be aware of it. And, typically what we do is have a backhoe come in and dig a hole probably 6 or 8 feet deep, and we'd drop the horse in, and that would be the end of it,
Right.
and it goes on continuously.
I was part of it. I owned a horse in my 20s. I know exactly,
Very
was part of that
accepted.
process. Absolutely, it does.
6 of them buried in my yard.
6?
Yeah, I do understand. I don't,
And I think there's 8 dogs.
I don't know if, Larry, it's a very valid point. I don't know that we could regulate that, what's in,
Well, I don't even know if we,
We want to
could even,
open the
could
worm.
even. Yeah, right, no, I know what you're saying.
Can
Yeah.
of worms.
well, my point is that we're not dealing with toxic waste, we're not dealing with atomic wastes here.
Right.
You
Right.
know, so,
Right.
I mean,
It's-
we do have to formulate guidelines, but it's not.
It's the normal
critical.
flora that a body
Exactly.
has. And
That
yeah.
it's a normal, natural process.
And one of the things maybe is, if I can, hopefully we'll get the background of the consultant and what they're basing their findings on, and perhaps they can zoom into the next meeting so that you hear firsthand and then answer questions that you might have for what that might look like. Mary, yourself, and Hillard may have some information regarding the cause of death, whether, I'm just thinking certain medicines and things that might be leach into the groundwater. That may be another consideration, what the board would say, well, if certain causes of death would exclude an individual from being buried outside of a vault or, green burial, things of that nature. The other part I wanted to just let the board know while I'm thinking of it, town council cautioned, sent an email to caution the board of being too restrictive on markers in that, because there are First Amendment rights involved there, and they would help guide in that process. So I think there's some latitude that they could, that perhaps town council or the law firm could guide the board on what is allowable for a marker of a grave, should you move forward and allow this.
Barry brought up a good point about Zone 2 and the property, if any part of it is in Zone 2, so that certainly would give us would give us some guidelines, even in this case. We would have to either, what would we, like, issue a precedent, or we would, if we approve this particular case, then we'd have to make concessions, or possibly make concessions going forward.
And Larry, those are called conditions, and the board, and the board has done this on different, they'll issue a permit with conditions.
see.
And that happens, all to be determined, what this policy might look like, variances or conditions that are put on to that permit, that might be something that the board wants to consider.
On the, from the list that Jay has provided us with, are there any other considerations you can think of that are not listed here that we might want to make sure we know about, because we kind of had a surprise with the,
Maybe the fee,
maybe what?
a fee, like a
Fee, okay. What else? Anything else?
I had in my notes, put a shroud or casket type. I don't know if that's something that needs to be outlined here, but I envision a section with some basic definitions of
Right, right.
what is a green burial, what is a home burial, what is a casket, what are the types that would be standard for a home burial.
And
or
our,
a green
our
burial.
policies usually have that, so
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
definitely
we're
for this one,
looking at the-
because it is such a unusual subject.
Interestingly, that is outlined in DEP's regulations, what is actually allowed. And we can copy, we don't have to come up with, recreate something, but those, the wicker and the untreated wood and the things of that nature, those are all defined, and it's in DEP's regulations.
So I suppose if it's in DEP's regulations, it doesn't need to be necessarily listed in ours.
Well, it does, because, well, we have to say in ours that we meet all of the state requirements.
course.
So I think I would list all of DEP's also, because that would help people from having to just try to go and do what we've been doing, which has really been, I think, piecemeal in terms of trying to figure out what's required. Anything else that anyone can think of that needs to be addressed?
What did you say about a fee?
If there might be a fee.
Yeah.
Would we consider a fee for the application?
No, I wouldn't.
Well,
They
no.
dealt
but
with,
that's-
they dealt with enough crap already. Why charge them for it?
Right, well, this is just a list of things that we might consider. What about someone who wants to be buried with their horse?
I know that happened once up in Maine. Yeah,
I mean,
I
who
know
who
from
prevails, the horse or the?
from what in my previous research, a human cannot be buried in an animal cemetery, and an animal can't be buried in a human cemetery. When I was researching ashes, like what to do with ashes, and that came up. So
Interesting.
Yeah, what's done in that case, typically if an owner really requests to be buried with their animal, it's surreptitiously done at their internment with the ashes of the pet.
With the ashes, okay,
That's
yeah,
usually how it works.
Okay.
I have never heard of it not
right,
happening,
right.
but that is a fairly common request.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
Just read it in obituaries
Sure.
quite a bit. Anything else? Jay, anything else that's come up?
This was not a to-do list, but things to be considered. And the one that I'd say the cause of death is the one I listed, also
Right.
what you're saying. And then what I'm going to be looking to do is to really define, because I think it may change, because you have an immediate applicant right in front of you, and I think it's important that water consultant, because that's a hard stop, is the information that they've given us is stopping. Regardless of what DEP says, the water supplier for the town of Yarmouth is saying, we would like to prohibit this.
Right.
So does that go across the board? Do they want that, community-wide? Are they saying, we don't want you to even consider this? Regardless of the conditions, regardless of the location or the size of the lot and what have you, the depth to water.
And if we're allowed to make any exceptions.
Right. What that might look like. I really think the next, and again, this just had come to me, but I really think again, prompting by Hillard to say, let's get the consultant, not just submit a bio, but also to have an exchange of information for the board to have. And I think with that information, it may give you better direction as to what this looks like.
Yeah, but the other issue, as far as the water superintendent goes, she kind of generalizes about the viruses and microorganisms, but there really aren't any specifics. And I think you alluded to Hill's request that we get a little more information, because I think she might have overstated the significance of those organisms in this case.
Larry, you may be right. I think she is relying on the water consultant. So with that information, I would probably ask Laurie, perhaps Jeff, but probably Laurie and the water consultant, where she gleaned that information from and just transcribed it to us, or to the board. So I think we've talked to funeral directors, other communities, attorneys. This is just one more place to make sure that we have a cohesive and comprehensive policy.
Was understanding that the funeral directors have a conflicting interest in this whole process
They
as
do.
well.
They do.
Yes.
But with good information, the board will make good decisions. So that we want to put that in front of you, and then you have some decisions to make.
So then we've added cause of death markers, fee or not, whether we can make an exception to a Zone 2, the casket, the body preparation, definitions, and all of this, of course, is premised on hearing some more from the water consultant, because like you said,
A
if
little
they
more
say,
information.
yeah, if they
about-
say no more Zone 2, none in Zone 2, then that dictates the current application's decision, but it does not leave us off the hook for getting a policy for the next one that comes in.
Madam Chairman, I think there isn't the urgency. I do feel a sense of urgency in respect
Right.
to Ross, to get
So
this
do I,
together.
yes.
But you're right, if Zone 2 and the board were to say, listen, we're not moving, we're going to be consistent with what the superintendent believes and the consultant believes, then you're right, then that application would not move forward. But this process, Barry and I will still be working on this.
Right. Yeah. And I would suggest that, Eric had already offered to help with it, that you have a smaller group of people working on it, so that maybe you can bring to us a draft policy, and we can then look at that.
Okay?
I think that it's not very doable to actually work on it in a meeting unless it's a smaller work group.
So if you guys could get kind of what you would like for an answer to each one of those questions, and then bring them to us, and we can kind of consolidate them and go from there.
Some of it's just somewhat shaping the size of the lot, like the size of the lot, 0.2 or 0.5, 1.5, 5 acres, what that minimum might look like, that, we can give a recommendation, but that's the board's decision on
Well,
those.
you give a recommendation and tell us what it's based on,
and I've
because
talked-
I have no idea what size lot. I mean, you just wouldn't have it.
Right.
We can handle that the same way we handle septic, you know? Sometimes we can give a variance,
There are certain conditions, that's,
you know?
And, yeah, and
This
let's
isn't,
put,
this-
we'll
all of
add
this
that.
doesn't have to be cut in stone.
Variances, if
Mary,
there's
did
any
you
variance.
add the significance of the viruses and the microorganisms?
I did,
that-
yes, uh-huh.
Because I think we probably need to get a little bit more information on
Right.
specifics. Because
Right.
I'm sure there's some real specifics as to what organisms are involved in a
Right.
decomposition of a body,
Right.
whether or not they would be detrimental to public
Right.
health.
And the water consultant, since he cited those, is the one that can at least tell us what he has
Yeah,
based that on.
where that information came from.
Right.
and in fairness to both Laurie and the consultant, I gave a very general, could you give me some guidance on this? So you don't see detail here, but it wasn't even requested. So please note, that was a very generic answer, and we'll drill down to the information that the board needs. Right.
A lot to it.
Yeah, and it was important to know that, to hear that, because that's,
Whoever said dying was easy.
Jay, number 9 says define area of non-disturbance. What is that in reference to?
So around the lot itself, so you're going to say the lot size is a certain square footage, and then not to disturb around that, say like, and I had to put it in the same, even an analogy, but around a septic system, there's setbacks and there's areas that can't be disturbed. So there would be the lot size itself, and that will be defined, and then an area outside of that that cannot be disturbed, and that has to be defined as well,
Okay.
right?
So they're not putting a pool on top of.
right, right. Yeah.
Right. Maybe there's a better terminology in our policy, but and we use that in zoning, we use that in the building side of inspectional services, so I just thought that was applicable.
Yep,
That-
sure,
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. Any other comments on this topic
Nope.
for now? So, for the next meeting, if we could just have, anyway, the bones, skeleton of a policy and some of the areas that we need to give you input on. But like I said, some of the technical things, I'd prefer we get some recommendations from you, because you're the experts in those kinds of things. And okay, that all right, Jay? We talked at
I
enough?
appreciate the guidance. It gives me some direction, and I'm going to be in touch with Lori and, I can't say the water consultant, but I'll be in touch with Lori, and I'll
Right.
coordinate for the meeting, and actually, that meeting is on the 18th, if that works for everyone.
And Jay, you may have seen it already, but I'll send you the town of Wendell. They have some information on this.
Okay.
Which I don't know if you've seen
I-
yet in your research, but
That doesn't,
I've seen Westwoods. I haven't seen Wendell's.
I don't know that I've seen that.
yeah, they have a nice checklist, and they kind of outline some of the responsibilities of the parties involved. So
That'd be helpful.
They
I
share
can look it up.
Board of Health responsibilities and then applicant responsibilities, which we may decide to change some of those, but it might be
No,
helpful.
pull upon, yeah, where's Wendell?
I still haven't figured out where.
Is it in
Wendell is.
Massachusetts?
It is in Massachusetts.
I'm only kidding. That name, I don't know that yeah, there's a
In the
lot.
western part of the state
Yeah, it's
somewhere?
a rural area,
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah,
A lot
yeah.
of horses.
thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. No, thank you. Yeah,
Farms, yeah,
sure.
sure.
Okay. Let's take a look at the minutes from the last meeting, which was October 21st, 24. Well done. Any comments or corrections?
Yeah, I have to congratulate Mo for that thorough job she does with the reporting all these minutes, because
Absolutely.
brought back all those, I mean, I couldn't have remembered all those things. Great the way you just put it all, all the discussion between Charlie and Jay, put it down clearly, and it was really just great.
I guess you'd
Appreciate
like
it.
to make a motion to accept.
I do. Makes-
Is there a second?
yeah.
Second.
Okay. You decide, Mo, which one it was, and we'll take a vote. All in favor of accepting the minutes of October 21st?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So they are accepted. The next item, 8, is new and old business. How did the Dolphin Dash go?
It was very well attended, I think.
Great.
Just over 120 participants.
Nice.
I got to catch up with Bruce a little bit. I stuck with him for about a mile, so.
You mean he went ahead of you?
Well, towards the end, I had to work to catch up with him. But, no, it was
Let them get ahead.
it was a nice event.
Good, good.
Well attended, and it was a beautiful morning to be out there. So thank you for
Yeah, we got it up on-
listing it on the town's website.
Great. Any other old business?
No, I would just let the board know that Hillard had put out the opioid by community, by municipality. That was good information. It's certainly something that we'll
Right.
be looking for. And it gives us a data point in time, so we can then see, and I attend the YSAC meetings. We have the opioid remediation dollars. And again, it's data-driven decision-making so that we understand what is confronting us. And it was a week ago, we saw, although I don't have all the reports on that, but tragically, two individuals died on a beach here in town, and we don't know, but there's certainly, those things raise a concern that we, as public health, we need to be aware of, working with law enforcement, and we'll release that kind of information. But make no mistake, their substance abuse is a real challenge, not only just in Yarmouth, across the whole Cape, in a community, youth, and there's no demographic that isn't touched by this. So it's important that we have this information.
Right. We have not a whole lot of decrease from 2016 to 2023 statewide, and for Yarmouth, looks like we had a few years, 20 and 21, that were above the 7 or 8 point. We're back down to 7, so.
Right.
But 7's too many. Any other old business?
Just for the hell of it, I'd like to see how many people died of alcohol at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't know that they separate that out, because it could be motor vehicle, or it
Right.
could be
Yeah.
suicide,
Work
it
both
could be
ways.
Yeah, there's a lot of,
just
Drunk
liver
driver
failure, or it
Killing
could be,
somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
probably, again, way too many. Way too many. Any new business?
Just a reminder that tomorrow's if anyone watching, tomorrow's a voting day, right?
Absolutely.
To encourage
Very
individuals.
We
important.
forget.
Yeah, I know, huh?
It's your vote.
Right? Just,
Right.
there you know. And the other part, hopefully, Halloween it was certainly safe here in town. There were a lot of different events, nonprofits at the town. There was a number of different things that happened at the library and beyond the senior center. A lot of nice events. And it just, it's a sense of community that we had on Halloween, so that was nice. A beautiful, warm night.
Yes.
So that was wonderful.
Weather,
Hope you all, at your own residence, had an enjoyable evening.
Eric, is there anything you want to suggest?
So at one point in time, we had our meetings at 5 o'clock, and I think we had moved them to 5:30 to
Deborah.
accommodate a member who's no longer part of the board, so just curious if anyone would like
Want to
to
move them back to 5?
consider doing it at 5 o'clock so we could get home to our families a little bit earlier.
Fine with
Problem.
me.
My only concern with that is that RAC meeting starts at 4. It's not always over by 5, but I would say lately, most often it is, so.
What meeting is that?
The Wastewater Resources Advisory Committee, I'm the representative from the board to that meeting, so.
And those are on the same day?
Same days, yes, and we've talked about it, but it still gets back to the same days, so. I have no objection to that. Anybody else object to that?
Sounds like a
Somebody
plan.
like to make a motion to that effect?
Sure. I move that we schedule our future Board of Health meetings to occur at 5 PM instead of 5:30.
Second?
Second?
Charlie seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And I assume the staff is okay with that, because no
Thank
one
you.
has
We're here,
objected.
yeah, absolutely. We're in favor of that.
Okay.
Saving the town money, too.
Hey, that's a good thing.
Are we going to see any kickbacks from that? Well, the department anyway.
Is your microphone on? Any other new business? Okay, go vote if you haven't already, please. Okay. I'll entertain a motion for the meeting to be
Make
adjourned.
a motion to get out of Dodge?
All right, Charlie, thank you. Second,
Second.
Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Good night, thank you all.
Thank you, guys.